Shalom. Let me get straight into this lesson. I'm gonna be going dissecting John 3:16. I'm gonna give you some pressure points, some things to analyze. We're gonna analyze that scripture. Um, so I want this is a powerful picture right here, and this is what's in most of our people mind, they subconscious mind. I got a breakdown of this definition of subconscious mind. So this is what the grown-ups and the majority of 95% of people in this world, they see this when they talk about the Messiah of the J name. This image comes up in their mind, and this is nothing but an idol. Let me get into this definition really quick. It says the subconscious mind is a vast underlying part of the psyche that functions like a massive database. I want you to remember that word, database, and autopilot system, storing your memories, beliefs, and skills were also managing automatic functions like breathing and heartbeat. Do you hear this? This is a profoundly heavy, that definition. So let's get all into this lesson. So remember this: when people say Christ is King, when they go to John 3:16, when they talk about blessed and highly favored, when they say have you been baptized, have you been saved, this is the imagery that they see in their mind. This is the modern day imagery of modern day Christianity. So whenever they say a scripture, wherever they say God bless you, wherever they say Jesus love you, this is who they talking about, this idol. Let's get into this lesson. So John 3:16 cannot mean what you was taught. I'm gonna say that again because these two scriptures are gonna cut that. So that means that you have to go back into the drawing board if you've been analytical and say, this can't mean what I've been taught it means. See, you've been taught it mean this. That don't necessarily mean that it is the truth. But let me say it like this. Just because you've been taught something, let me say it in a better way, don't mean it's true. And that's something that people really can't separate that. If they've been taught something their whole life, even though it's not the truth, their mind can't separate from that lie. That's what you call indoctrination. Just because you've been taught something as the truth don't mean that it is the truth. That makes sense? So you've been taught all wrong. Our people don't even know how to break down literature. They don't know how to break down words. They don't know what words properly mean. It's that malnutrition of them. They ain't learned nothing. So John 3:16. This is the most infamous scripture in Christianity, but you Christians have no understanding what this scripture properly means. It says, "For God so loved the world." They think it's talking about the whole inhabited earth when they see this word world. Do you not know that the word world has different definitions depending on the context? And this word don't mean the whole inhabited world, Salakia. In the Greek, which they would have used the word archimene, which is talking about the inhabitants of the earth. But this word world goes back into the Greek word cosmos, which can mean a vast amount of different things. And also what the word means in this context is talking about the world of Israel, the nation of Israel, the world of Israel. Like you got the world of, basketball, you got the world of football, so you can understand, you know, that he gave his only begotten son. And first off, who was he talking to? You people act like he went outside and make a proclamation to the world. No, he was having a one-on-one conversation with an Israelite. That's very important to understand that. John 3:1. There was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, ruler of the Jews. So Nicodemus was an Israelite. Let's keep going. It says, and the same came unto Yahweh by night and said unto him, so this is a one-on-one convo. Rabbi, we know that thou art the teacher from Yahweh. For no man can do these miracles that thou doest, except Yahweh be with him. And that's true. He was the Messiah that was promised to the nation of Israel to be that sacrificial lamb, which was the Israelite custom to get us back into the Father. You know what I'm saying? So this is a one-on-one conversation. Let's go. So let's go to 3:16. And you know it, for God so loved the world So he was having this one-on-one conversation with Nicodemus. I'm gonna break it down to you further. Let's go here, and I'm gonna get to those two scriptures as well. It says, breaking this down in an analytical way, not emotionally, breaking down through facts. Number one, Nicodemus' background. Nicodemus was a member of the Sanhedrin, the Jewish, and this word Jewish is new speak. He was an Israelite. They put this word Jewish there so you can picture them in your mind when you think it's, you see this word Jewish, that he's talking about the people that's currently in the land of Israel. No, he's an Israelite. Ruling council and a Pharisee, John 3 and 1. Check this out. It says Pharisees were deeply committed to the Torah, the law, interpreting it and applying Yahweh commands to daily life. It says ritual purity and covenantal obedience, maintaining Israel's distinctiveness as God's chosen people. It says his worldview was centered on Israel. So if Yahweh Shah was having this one-on-one conversation with Nicodemus, it was to be understood through a perspective of an Israelite, not you'll see what I'm saying. That's why I said his worldview was centered on Israel, God's covenant people, rather than a global or universal concept of humanity. That's a new thing that they put inside of there to push this universal doctrine. Let's keep going. Number two, it says Yahweh Shai measures through the lens of a Pharisee. Check this out. Yahweh Shai tells Nicodemus that a person must be born again to see the kingdom of Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai. It says, the second little paragraph, to Nicodemus, this would immediately resonate as a spiritual renewal within the covenant community. What does this mean, Israelites? Not as a command for all nations. It says Pharisaic thought emphasized the spiritual state of Israel, righteousness, obedience, and faithfulness to Yahweh. God's judgment and blessing were framed within Israel covenant, not as a universal moral principle to the Gentiles. See, there you go. Let's keep going. The covenant framework in the first century, this ain't no such thing as Judaism. That's a new concept, like Jewish, Judaism, Jesus, all of them are new speak. But we Israelites, we don't. Judaism was created by the small hatters. It says salvation, blessing, and God's promises were primarily seen in terms of Israel, the chosen people. World, cosmos, as I explained to you. In this context, will often refer to the fallen state of humanity within Israel, including sin, legalism, and misunderstanding of God's law. That's how you got these jakes today. They don't have no good understanding of what's going on. It says Yahweh Shah words are a call to Nicodemus and symbolically Israel to recognize that spiritual life and salvation come through God's plan, not just human obedience to the law. Right here, 4, it says Nicodemus' likely interpretation. Nicodemus would have understood God loved his covenant people and wants them to be restored, wants them restored, Salakia. The Messiah work is aimed at spiritual renewal for Israel, correcting legalism and misunderstanding, because they was trying to put our people back under the law for salvation, and we rest in Yahweh Shah for salvation. That don't mean the law is done away with, though. C, belief in the Messiah is a path to enter in the kingdom of Yahweh, applicable to Israel, right? And they going off, but it says the concept of all humanity as a target audience would have been foreign to worldview, because Pharisaic teaching focused on God's chosen people, who was that, the Israelites. 5, it says why later readers interpreted universally. This is that false doctrine that came through the Edomites. Later, Christianity theology extended John 3:16 beyond Israel to all nations. Do you hear this? But historically, Nicodemus' Pharisaic mindset means he would have read it as a message about Israel's spiritual health, a call to faith and renewal for God's covenant people, which is Israelites. Nicodemus' interpretation is shaped by his Pharisaic worldview. Number two, his Israelite understanding of salvation, of God's love as primarily Israel centric, only Israel centric. Yahweh Shah emphasizes on a spiritual rebirth as corrective to Israel's spiritual blindness. This is only talking about Israelites. So the original meaning of John 3:16 in its first century Israelite context is a message about God's love for Israel and the need for spiritual renewal, not a universal proclamation to all humans. Screenshot that. Let's get into this. Let's get into these two scriptures. I'm going to shut it down because you Christians out your MF and mind. You know what I'm saying? You out your mind because you've been taught all wrong. All right, give me 1 second. Let me get this pulled up. Matthew 10 and 5. If you can understand it, you're going to get it. If you don't, you're not going to get it. It's going to go over your head, over your understanding because you're indoctrinated and brainwashed. These 12 Yahweh Shai sent forth 12 disciples and commanded them, saying, go not into the way of the Gentiles. Now, this in this context, this word Gentile is talking about heathen nations, people that's outside of the nation of Israel. Sometimes when you see the word Gentile, like Gentiles in the plural sense of it, it's talking about Israelites. But in this context, it's talking about the other nations, proving that this message and the road to recovery is only for Israel. It says, go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not. Right? Let's go here. Matthew 10:5. Did I? This God's words translation. Matthew 10:5. Yahweh shall send right at the top. Send 12 out with the following instructions. Don't go among people who are not Jewish, which we know that means Israelites, or into any city of any Samaritan city. So don't go that way. You know what I'm saying? Instead, go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, the nation of Israel. So this was a direct commandment from the Messiah. So they go to show you that John 3:16 cannot mean what you was taught. And that's why you Christians, people that's outside of the Bible, whatever, they'll say in some instances that the Bible contradict itself. You know, but it go back into the misunderstanding. That's why they think that way, because they've been taught wrong. Matthew 15:24. This is milk stuff. It says, but he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. This Yahweh Shai is written in blood. Let's go here. Matthew 15:24. It says, NIV, that's what I wanted. 1 second. So this is Matthew 15:24 NIV. And he answered, I was sent only, words are very important, to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So that's all he was sent for. And this will make your interpretation of what you've been taught of John 3:16 mean, John 3:16 mean not true. I gave you the understanding. And I can go deep. I've did lessons going into this. But just to keep it simple, two scriptures cuts this madness. And I went into chat GPT to elaborate on this, that it wasn't talking about the whole inhabited world. It was talking about the world of Israel, the Israelites. And it's proved, these scriptures prove, I can go to more. So the way you've been taught is all wrong. Hopefully this lesson was edifying. Call Allah Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai Bahashim Rachak Kodash. Shalom.